The ocean had always spoken to me in steady breaths. Inhale with the tides, exhale with the waves, and my hotel had learned to breathe with it. Mornings began as the sun slid through the glass doors of the lobby and caught the gold-dusted edges of the old Art Deco chandelier. The terrazzo floor gleamed like sealed memory. Guests drifted through with coffee and hush-soft voices. My staff moved in a rhythm I could have conducted with my eyes closed. It was not perfect, but it was ours. Then my brother arrived with a grin like a cracked mask and a promise so big it cast a shadow over everything. "Ayan," I said, hugging him with the affection and caution that only family can carry at the same time. "You're early. Early to fix your life, big brother." He laughed, smelling like cologne and gasoline, always as if he had just stepped out of a moving car. "Investors, partnerships. There's a conference next month. Tech meets hospitality. We get in front of them. We take this place to the next level." He had ideas like fireworks, loud, bright, and the next morning you find ash on the windowsill. Yet I wanted to believe. Our mother had left us the hotel as if she'd given us a last unfinished sentence, and I was determined to write it well. Ayan wanted to underline it in neon. By week 2, the concierge desk became a war room of sticky notes and his scrawled signatures. By week 3, I noticed the accounts, petty cash evaporating, supply costs spiking, vendors calling me friend, in a tone that meant the opposite. He booked a soft launch party without telling me, calling in favors from DJs and influencers who wore sunglasses indoors and used the word iconic like punctuation. The music rattled the lobby's bones. A champagne pyramid rose like a fragile mausoleum. "Exposure," he said over the bass. "You can't buy this kind of PR." The morning after, the chandelier hung at a wilted angle, like a tired flower. A busboy swept up glitter that came away with the stubbornness of regret. The night manager showed me camera footage, a line of strangers pouring in after midnight because someone had posted our address as after party at the Seaside Palace. The exposure had included 4 broken room lamps, a shattered mirror, 1 stolen set of copper pans from the kitchen, and a complaint from a neighbor about screams and doves. There were no doves. Even the complaints were lies now. I called Ayan into my office, and he leaned in the doorway as if the frame were a person he needed to impress. "Relax," he said. "I comped the damages with package vouchers. We'll turn them into return guests." "You comped damages?" My voice went thin. "Marketing," he said, smile tidy, eyes bright. "We're reinvesting in virality." "Virality doesn't fix invoices." His grin flickered. "Everything's under control." I wanted to ask, whose control? I hired extra cleaners. I soothed vendors. I walked the hallways at night and talked to the hotel itself. We had refinished every handrail, repainted every doorframe, replaced the boilers one winter when the pipes had sounded like haunted organs. I had carried laundry baskets with the night staff, folded towels until the blue hours gave way, made coffee when the machine broke, and memorized the names of returning guests. "Welcome back," I'd say, and mean it. The hotel had been a promise I kept to myself every day. Now I watched a promise curdle. Then the letter arrived. A notice from the health department giving us 48 hours to correct violations found in a surprise inspection. Violations I knew I hadn't missed, unless someone else had moved the line. The walk-in fridge was 2 degrees warmer than allowed. The pantry's labeling had gone sloppy. There were open bottles where there should have been caps, and caps where there should have been locks. I pressed my thumb into the paper until it wrinkled. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked the chef, a gentle bulldog of a man who'd cooked for my mother once and decided to stay for us. He rubbed his forearm nervously. Ayan said he had it handled. Of course he did. "He doesn't work in this kitchen," I said, more to myself than to anyone else. The second letter arrived like a twin with fists. The bank. Payments missing. I stared at the statement. 2 large transfers out of the operations account, labeled vendor advance. I pulled up the vendor invoices. No corresponding charges. I called numbers, listened to ringtones, learned that a consultant now stood between us and our own money like a smirking doorman. I called Ayan. "Don't be dramatic," he said when I found him lounging in a poolside chair. "Short-term bridge loans. You have to spend to grow." "It's not growth if you burn the roots," I said, a little too sharply. "Did you authorize transfers without me?" He hesitated. It was the kind of pause that felt like an admission sitting in a dark room. "You had me on joint authority," he said, and put his sunglasses back on. "Trust me, I did not want to start a war on the pool deck." Guests drifted past, water reflecting on their skin like blue handwriting. I lowered my voice. "We have 48 hours to clear violations. The bank wants a meeting. If we don't fix this, the hotel—" I couldn't finish. "Then we will fix it," he said brightly, as if he'd heard I needed a new coat of paint. The next day, I threw myself into motion. I rewrote checklists. I stood in the pantry with labels and a Sharpie like a teacher at a whiteboard. I swapped out the fridge's failing thermostat. I begged the supplier for a rush unit and promised to make it right on the invoice. The staff, my staff, closed ranks like a good team does when something more than money is at stake. The housekeeping supervisor, a woman who had watched me grow up behind the front desk, pressed her hand to my shoulder. "We're with you," she said. "But you need to be careful with him." "I know," I said, though I wasn't sure I did. That afternoon, I found a ledger in Ayan's backpack. Yes, I rifled through it. Yes, I felt sick doing it. Yes, I'd do it again. The ledger was old-fashioned, as if he'd tried to leave a paper ghost. Names, amounts, a pattern of small overcharges to large bookings, all siphoned through a promotions partner I'd never heard of. I recognized one name, a local event organizer with a reputation for cutting corners where the corners were made of people. I called him. He picked up like a man who answered phones in corridors. "Yeah? This is the owner of Shoreline House," I said calmly. "I need to see you. Now." "Talk to your brother," he said, and hung up. The silence after that click felt like the first seconds of a power outage. Everything still. Then your mind rushing to all the rooms that go dark at once. I found Ayan in the lobby with a group of slick men I didn't know, discussing a partnership rollout that sounded suspiciously like a sale. He saw me and tried to fold me into the conversation. "Perfect timing," he said. "We were just talking about co-branding." "We're not co-branding," I said. "We are barely surviving your branding." His friends smiled in the slow way of men who smell trouble and enjoy it. "Maybe we should give you two a minute," one of them said, and they drifted away, leaving a ring of citrus in the air. "Where's the money, Ayan?" I asked. "No poetry now. Just the dull blade of truth." He squared his shoulders like a boy caught with a slingshot. "Stop acting like a victim. I moved funds to secure better deals. This is how it works. You play big or you go home. This is home," he shrugged. "Then grow up." A pair of guests entered, dragging wheeled luggage that clicked over the floor. I heard their soft voices, the kind of hopeful tone that comes with arriving anywhere you've chosen on purpose. I thought of my mother sanding the reception desk with her bare hands, glue under her nails, her hair tied in a scarf against the dust. I thought of the first winter we stayed open, when the town went quiet, and we survived on locals and luck. I thought of every towel folded, every keycard replaced, every apology I'd made on behalf of a universe that likes to throw storms. "You're going to meet me in the ballroom at 7, I said evenly. "Bring your ledger. And the men you just introduced to my lobby. We're going to make everything clear." He smirked. "Are you staging a coup in your own hotel?" "I'm staging a presentation," I said. "One you're going to regret missing." He laughed, and I saw for a moment the boy who used to race me on the beach and swear he could hold his breath longer. "Sure," he said. 7. I spent the next 3 hours remapping the truth. I pulled camera clips, account statements, email threads. I called the bank and asked the manager to attend. It would give clarity, I said, and promised it wouldn't waste her time. I invited the health inspector, politely, pretending I wanted to demonstrate good faith corrections. I asked the event organizer's assistant to tell her boss the owner was making decisions that would affect him. I was not going to scream in my own ballroom. I was going to show them a mirror. The ballroom smelled faintly of lemon polish and old applause. We set up a projector on a rolling cart, the same one we used for wedding slideshows, and aligned the image until it squared perfectly on the portable screen. At 7 on the dot, they came. Ayan in a navy jacket, the men with bracelets stacked like armor, the bank manager with her clipped walk, the health inspector with her clipboard like a shield. My staff lingered at the edges, pretending to check exits and coil cables, eyes tight with hope. "Welcome," I said, voice steady. "Let me tell you a story about a hotel that learned how to breathe." The first slide appeared. Our accounts before Ayan arrived. Boring, consistent, dignified. The second slide, the bridge loans, the promotions partner, the missing signatures. I didn't accuse, not yet. I narrated. I asked questions the way surgeons make incisions. Precise, necessary. The room grew quiet in the way of theaters when the audience realizes the play is about them. Halfway through, as I clicked to a camera clip of the soft launch, when the cash box was carried out under someone's jacket, the ballroom doors opened. A police officer stepped in. Someone had called them, not me. And the air shifted like the moment before a storm hits the windows. I turned to Ayan. "There's one more thing," I said. "A final detail you can explain better than I can." He swallowed. "What detail?" I clicked the final slide. It was a scanned document, a deed of sale. My mother's signature, no, a forgery of it, scribbled onto a letterhead from a shell company with a post office box and a name that meant nothing until it meant the end of everything. "Why?" I asked, voice soft now, because a whisper can be sharper than a shout. "Did you try to sell our hotel without telling me?" The room held its breath. And then the projector flickered. The screen blinked once, twice, and I thought for a heartbeat that the hotel itself had decided to spare my brother by swallowing the proof. But the projector steadied with a stubborn whir, like a small engine refusing to die, and the deed returned, crisp and damning, floating on the screen like a confession writ in ink. Ayan's hands were empty, but they looked guilty anyway. He stared at the image as if he could will the letters to rearrange themselves into absolution. "It's a draft," he said at last, voice strained. It was exploratory. Nothing was finalized. The bank manager stepped closer, squinting. "That company," she said, pointing with a lacquered nail, "has been calling us for lean information. We assumed it was routine." The health inspector, bless her pragmatic heart, spoke as if she were reading out lab results. "You have 22 hours left on your corrections." She lowered the clipboard, eyes softening. "I'm here because he invited me to a demonstration of compliance, not this." One of the bracelet men shifted his weight. "We were under the impression this was a pitch." "It is," I said, "but the product changed." The officer hovered near the door, hands resting on duty belt, eyes measuring the temperature of the room. "Is anyone alleging a crime?" he asked evenly. I looked at my brother. For a split second I saw a flicker, panic, the child flailing in the deep end. He remembered, I knew, because I remembered too. The summer hall of tourists pulling rip currents like threads. The day he went under and came up with that coughing, furious look that said, "Don't tell anyone you saw me drown." "Not yet," I said to the officer. "We're going to talk first." "Then I'll wait in the lobby," he said. He tipped his chin, met my eyes, and added quietly, "Take your time." He left, and the ballroom exhaled. I turned to Ayan. "You're going to listen," I said. "Really listen. And then you're going to decide how much of a brother you want to be." I clicked again. The slides disappeared. The screen held a single image. My mother, younger than I am now, standing beneath the same chandelier, her hands on her hips, paint on her cheek, smiling at the camera like she dared the future to try her. The room softened. This place, I said, my voice suddenly thicker than I'd planned, was never a trophy. It's a lung. It breathes for people who arrive tired and leave lighter. It breathes for staff who needed a steady job and found a family. It breathes for two brothers who grieved a mother and were given something living to care for. You wanted to sprint. I wanted to keep time. We could have learned the same song. Instead, you tried to sell the instrument. He stared at the floor, a man studying the pattern of his mistakes. I moved to the table and put down 2 documents. I spoke to our attorney, I said. I didn't press charges. Not yet. Here are your choices. First, I go to the police with the ledger and the deed attempt. The bank calls your partners, and we unwind this in court while the hotel hemorrhages. You'll probably get probation if you cooperate. Maybe worse if you don't. Either way, the story becomes public. Our staff will scatter because uncertainty is a storm that ruins more roofs than rain. The room listened as if it had ears. Second, I said, you sign a transfer now of your share back to me at a fair valuation minus the amount you siphoned. Yes, I know the amount. I triple-checked. You sign a binding repayment plan to cover what's missing. You resign from any operational role. You're barred from accounts. You help me fix what you broke. Not as a partner, but as staff. Night shift. Front desk, linens, wiring light bulbs, explaining to guests why we double-check keycards now. 6 months hard work. Full restitution within 18. I won't file. The deed disappears into a drawer that no one opens again. And the only people who ever know the full story are the ones in this room. He looked up then, eyes glassy, anger sparking with humiliation. You want me to be a bellboy in the hotel I almost sold? I want you to understand what it takes to keep it breathing, I said. And I want you to feel the weight of the keys without wearing the crown. One of the bracelet men scoffed. This is family drama, he muttered. We're leaving. You're not part of this deal, I said. And the security supervisor, a former bouncer with a talent for reading rooms, quietly stepped in front of the door. But the men left anyway, past him, muttering about wasted time. Good riddance felt like a breeze. Ayan reached for bravado again. You can't run this alone. You never could. I thought of every dawn I'd opened the front doors, flipped the sign from closed to welcome, and inhaled the salt-heavy air like a prayer answered. Watch me, I said. The bank manager cleared her throat. If he signs, and your operations stabilize, we can restructure the payments, but we'll need a full accounting and a plan within 2 weeks. She looked at me, not at Ayan, with an expression that could be called respect. Bring me that, and we'll keep you afloat. The health inspector stepped forward as if we had always been colleagues. The fridge is fixed. The pantry looks meticulous, she said. I still need to see corrective action documented, but you're on the right track. If you can show me logs by morning, we can close the violations. I'll brew the coffee myself, I said. She smiled, a small flash of mercy. I prefer tea. Then it was just me, my brother, and the echo of our choices. I set a pen on the table. It rolled a little, found its own balance, and stilled. Ayan, I said quietly now, the way you speak through a door you hope someone will open. I don't want to punish you. I want to save what's left of us, but I won't let you drown me to avoid learning how to swim. He stared at the paper as if it might bite. The room stretched. Somewhere far away, in the kitchen, a kettle clicked off. I saw his jaw shift, once, twice, as though he were chewing the last stubborn piece of pride. He signed. It was not a grand gesture. His signature looked small, like a leaf. But there it was. He pushed the paper to me without looking up. You'll make me pay, he said dully. I'll make you work, I corrected. The paying comes after. We ended the night like surgeons after a long operation. Exhausted, grim, relieved to see the patient breathing. The officer returned. I told him we had settled it for now. He looked at Ayan, at me, and gave a small nod that said, "I've seen worse and I've seen better. Good luck." The inspector left me with a list that felt mercifully short. The bank manager shook my hand as if a transaction had been both concluded and begun. The staff drifted in closer once the outsiders left, and I told them the truth. Not the whole truth, but enough. "We're going to make changes," I said. "Some of them will hurt. All of them will heal. If you stay with me, I won't forget it." They did not cheer. They did not clap. They went back to work. It was the most loyal thing I'd ever seen. The next weeks were a kind of penance that came lifted with tenderness. I was up at 4 and asleep at 1. We deep-cleaned corners that had become metaphors. We retrained on check-ins like we were a brand new team. I rewired the accounting permissions, built redundancy so elegant it made me feel foolish for not doing it sooner. We posted a temporary renovations notice with honest language, and a picture of the lobby bathed in morning light. I called vendors and owned what we owed. I called locals and offered them rates that made the rooms hum even on weekdays. A blogger discovered us by accident and wrote a piece called "The Hotel That Refuses to Die." Bookings started to hold, and Ayan worked. He folded linens with a concentration I'd wished he'd given to budgets. He learned the register and the art of the apology. He walked the halls at night, adjusting thermostats and gently redirecting a drunk guest to the elevator. He unclogged a drain with his own hands. He swept glitter left from a birthday party and didn't make a joke about it. He listened to the chef lecture about cross-contamination until he could recite the sermon himself. Guests who didn't know his last name complimented that young man at the desk in comment cards that we pinned to the corkboard like tiny, surprising blessings. He said little to me at first. We floated past each other like co-owners of a broken silence. But one evening, as the sky bruised purple and the lobby lamp clicked on with its golden sigh, he approached the front desk while I was balancing ledgers. "You kept the pen," he said, nodding to the one he'd used, now clipping receipts together like a mundane sentinel. "I keep what works," I said. He took a breath that sounded like a confession trying to learn to speak. "I didn't think I could ruin it," he said. "I thought I was too smart to fail. I thought you were too stubborn to lose. I thought I was helping." "You were helping yourself," I said, then softened. "And now you're helping us." He nodded, eyes red in the way men's eyes get when they decide they're done lying to themselves. "I'll finish the repayments early," he said. "I picked up shifts at the marina on my days off." "You don't have days off," I said. And he smiled for the first time in a way that wasn't armor. Spring slid into something like prosperity. The bank restructured. The inspector closed our file with notes that sounded almost proud. We replaced the chandelier's bent arm. We launched a new website, clean, honest, beautiful, with photos that looked like the truth. I recorded a short video for the homepage, my voice steady, my smile small. "Family run," I said into the camera, choosing my words like stones on a path. And finally, family healed. But regret has a long echo, and justice, to be real, needs form as well as feeling. On a bright Saturday, I called a staff meeting in the ballroom. The room hummed with the kind of anticipation that usually belongs to weddings. Ayan stood in the back, shoulders straight like a man awaiting a verdict. I stepped up to the small riser we used for toasts. 6 months ago, I began, we almost lost this place. We almost lost each other. We survived because you refused to let go. Not of the mop, not of the checklists, not of hope. I held up a set of keys, the old brass ones we kept in the drawer like heirlooms. They caught the light. Ayan has fulfilled his repayment plan halfway, ahead of schedule. He's completed every shift asked of him. Effective today, he's no longer on probation. A murmur moved through the room. I turned to him. You're not a partner, I said clearly, so the truth stayed clean. But I'm offering you a job, assistant manager, under the manager you once ignored. You'll answer to the team. You will earn your way back to more or you won't. This is not mercy. This is a ladder. He swallowed. I accept. Good, I said. Because there's one more thing. I wheeled out the projector cart. A few staffers laughed, nervous, curious. I lowered the lights. The screen lit up with a montage. The lobby's morning light, the chef plating a simple, perfect omelet, the housekeeper smoothing a duvet like a promise, the maintenance crew replacing a light bulb and then high-fiving quietly, the concierge handing a map to a kid who looked like he might grow up to own a place like this. Ayan appeared too, adjusting a tie, opening a door, wiping a spill, smiling at a guest, a real smile, without neon. The final shot was the hotel at dusk, every window warm, as if the building had learned to breathe again. On the last frame, a line of text appeared. Saved. The staff clapped, softly at first, then louder, until the chandelier trembled with applause. I saw tears. I heard laughter. I felt the kind of joy that isn't loud but deep. Afterward, Ayan approached me in the glow of the lobby. He looked different in small ways. The tilt of his head, the quiet of his hands. I do regret it, he said, as if the words were a gift he could finally afford. In the best way. Because it made me see you. It made me see this. I didn't make you regret it, I said gently. You did. I just built the mirror. He nodded. Thank you for not letting me drown. Next time, I said, because the future demands small warnings. We say the truth out loud before the storm. Deal, he said. Guests came in then, trailing sun on their shoulders, asking about rooms with ocean views. A child pressed his fingerprints to the glass and laughed. The bell tinged as the door closed, and the hotel breathed, steady and sure. That night, long after the last check-in, I walked the corridor with the soft steps of a caretaker on sacred ground. I paused beneath the chandelier and looked up at its healed arm. It glittered like an apology accepted. I thought of my mother, the way she used to stand right here and listen to the building's bones, as if the beams could speak. We're okay, I said into the quiet. Somewhere a window sighed as the sea pulled back. The sound was an old friend. The hotel inhaled, exhaled, and went on being beautiful. And I knew, finally, that we would too.